Ping pong, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of Geeks at Sea. Today, here with me is Atticus, all the way from actually, is it still, okay? I know you're currently in Australia, but which part of Australia are you at right now?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Oh God, I've always had this problem because I really have no sense of how Australia really is like. So every time someone tells me I'm from Australia, I get this weird impression in my head that, oh, um, like I always get mixed up whether you're from Sydney, Melbourne, and there's usually a third city, and I'm just horrible at it. Ah, God. Yeah. Let's not make this a
I think you
geography
made
test.
in Adelaide,
Yes,
Brisbane,
Adelaide.
Perth.
No, it's definitely Adelaide. My usual third one is usually Adelaide, and I always get it mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Anyways, let's not turn this into a geography test, which I'm definitely going to fail. Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone. And in case if you're the first time coming onto this channel and checking out this thing, let me just introduce myself. My name is Bimji, aka Jared. This is my channel. And basically what we do here at Geeks at Sea is that we're going to go through a little conversation with various people who have contributed or engaged in or have done something along the lines notable to some level or another in the general Southeast Asia region, or in terms of exploring the geekdom or influencing geekdom and the evolution of everything that we do. I know I'm doing this really badly this evening. It's largely because I'm really, really tired. It's been a very, very long day. So please be patient with me. But yes. Oh God. I think I'm practically drunk today. Anyway. Oh shit.
It's all good.
No. I just saw my connection slow down, so I need to be a little bit careful about how stable my connection is going to be for the rest of the night. So just for those who don't know, I haven't done this yet, but like last week when I was doing this show, I was doing it in Indonesia, and at the time we didn't have a reliable connection, and while we were doing it, towards the end especially, the connection got really, really wonky, and I actually haven't had a chance to actually rewatch the last show, even though it's been 2 weeks. But the idea was that if I was supposed to upload a recording that we did to sort of just cover up for that last part of the show that would have been like reasonably like impossible to sit through. But yeah, this tonight might be another rehash of that. I really don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't. But anyways, also notably, while we're on the topic of Indonesia, I just want to like highlight one quick thing. While I was in Indonesia, a lot of my files got corrupted. So this layout that you're seeing here tonight is going to be a very different one. Like anyone who's been watching the show, like you'll see that it's different from the usual one. And I basically had to make a lot of stuff from scratch. Hopefully this actually looks nicer. I'm kind of happy with the simpler look of it. I actually rushed through a lot of stuff, but the simpler look feels kind of nice, at least to me. So yeah, tonight Atticus and we will be going through a little bit of history in terms of cosplaying and cosplay events within Malaysia on this new layout. Are you excited, Atticus? It's a weird thing to be excited for, isn't it?
As excited as I can be, I guess.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, so for the sake of our sanity, I'm going to do the same thing as I did during the Indonesia one. This is going to be a bit late though. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the record button, and in the worst case scenario, if the connection similarly bails out on us this time, I will re-upload it again shortly after lah. Right? Oh, I just realized something really, really dumb. I'm going to do something real quick. Yeah, I'm so sorry about this. Yeah, Atticus, just give me a quick second. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who, I know you can't see this, but basically what happens is that on YouTube there's usually a channel logo on your bottom right, and I completely forgot about it. And what's happening with that right now is that it's actually interrupting. It's actually in the way of the bottom part of the chat. So if anyone messages right now, what happens is that it's just going to be blocked by the channel logo, which is going to irritate me for the rest of the night if I don't do anything about it now. So please, if you don't mind, yeah, I'm just going to do a real quick adjustment to this. Okay, never mind. That's good. It's going to be a quick minute. Oh no! Oh no!
Is that all good?
Okay, it's even worse than I thought. I did a boo-boo. Okay, right.
Oh,
Let me just take this from the top. Hi, good evening, everyone. Bing bong. Welcome to another night of Geeks at Sea. I'm sounding very annoyed right now because I have done a bunch of really, really silly mistakes tonight. Chief of all is I started the show and I forgot to unmute myself. So Atticus was giving a lot of reactions to me saying
do
nothing. And I have no idea
Oh
what's
no.
okay. On the positive of that, I fumbled this entire starting this week. So we're just gonna start from scratch. We're gonna NG everything before this. And if when I finally timestamp this thing, I'm just gonna say like the start just doesn't show up for until this point. I think we can all agree that the minutes prior to this is not something any one of us wants to go too deep into. All right. All right, let's come back to it. All right, so yeah, welcome to another session of Geeks at Sea. For those who are not familiar with this show, what we usually do here is that we go through a little trek of nostalgia and basically explore some stories back in the day when we first went into whatever geekdom that we have. Notably, all the guests that I usually call in have some tangential interaction or relationship with the Southeast Asian sort of geek culture related stuff. So we're all there are organizers. I've had sessions with organizers. I've had sessions with artists. I have sessions with cosplayers, obviously. So here tonight with us is Atticus, who is actually one of the organizers for CosMas back in the early 2000s. That is easily 20 years ago if you know to do the math, you know? So yeah. So for those who are not familiar with this show and first time joining us, standard disclaimers before I go into deep. Number one, what we're going to be doing, as I mentioned, is going to be a lot of like just basically sharing and talking about the good old days, quote unquote. I really bad turn of phrase there. But basically, we're going to be talking about like, you know, when we grew up and how we got into our geekdoms and all that kind of stuff and all the things that are involved. A lot of these stories are over 2 decades old. So with that said, please recognize that our memories are going to be faulty. It's a large part of why we're going to be doing what we're going to be doing anyway. It's to record everything here. But at the end of the day, we are unreliable narrators of our own stories. So please take everything we say with a huge pinch of salt, right? That's number one. Number two, we are going to be talking about stuff because we're going to be, these are very personal stories and a lot of these are going to be parts where we're really engaged with them. So please recognize that we're going to sometimes sound like we are the big voices in all of them. Like, oh yeah, I made the organization do this, or at the time my perspective is this kind of thing. So with that in mind, right, please recognize that while we're speaking about like being a part of organizations, recognize that no organization is a monolith. It's no one person, like my decision means everything kind of deals. So what that means is that everything we say should not be taken as representative of any parties involved or any organizations beyond ourselves. Basically, our opinions expressed are our own and nothing more than that. All right. So keep that in mind while we go through these stories together. Right. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's go down to business. Atticus, I want to ask one really silly question first before we really get into the meat and bones of things. God, my turn of phrases are horrible tonight. When was the last time we really chatted? Do you still remember?
The last time we really chatted.
Yeah.
Wow. It was
Because
easily 15 years ago, maybe.
it is, right? Like, I think what a lot of people don't know is that, just to give a little background, right? Me and Atticus, we got to know each other back in the early 2000s when he was organizing the event that we're going to be sharing a lot more stories about, which is CosMas and stuff. And back in those days, we would meet because of events, or we'd go out for drink ups and stuff like that, right? So it's like, oh hey, let's like we would arrange for stuff on the forums, DM each other, and go like, oh yeah, hey, let's just meet up and hang out and shit.
That's right.
Yeah, but like aside from that, outside of that, and this is gonna sound really bad, we didn't know each other.
No, we did not.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a new time for everyone, so nobody knew each other pretty much.
Exactly right. It was that time, right? Exactly. So yeah, so we've not stayed in touch for so many years. It's and the fact is we've never had this conversation before. Because like I knew you, like we were kids at that time, and we would sit out, we would hang out, and when you're kids like that and friends and that, you're just enjoying each other's company. You don't start talking about like way back when kind of thing, right? So here's the big question. This is how we're going to begin, right? With that in mind, and this is probably going to be the first time I hear of this, is what was your first geekdom, and how do you first get into it? Was it anime? Was it games? Was it comics? What exactly was your first like sort of step into geek culture in general?
My first step. So I think similarly with a lot of people back then, with the scarcity of available media, I would say my first step would be good old Comics House.
So yours was Comic House.
Yes.
Wow.
With their translated. Well, I mean, the first real dabble into the geekdom, I guess, would be Comics House because of the publications of Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, sort of things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to ask then, like nothing before that? Absolutely nothing before that?
Well, my uncle from America bought several Marvel comics, but it didn't really start. I mean, it was interesting to me at the time, but somehow the focus shifted over to manga, which was more appealing.
Cool.
There was an earlier point in time where I recall watching, and I've checked this with several people, but apparently on RTM 7, was it RTM?
No, it's that's NTV7. There's no RTM.
NTV7?
Yeah. It's RTM
yeah, so you don't remember.
But yeah, NTV7.
I think it's RTM 1.
All right.
Was when they showed Getter Robo.
Ghetto Robo. All right.
I remember seeing the 3 ships or the 3 units combining into a single mecha. But then, apparently no one else remembered that. Which is so vague, which is so weird because it was so vivid. Like I definitely remember watching it when I was a kid. I was really young.
So funny thing is, I actually have a similar story to share. Because fact is, I've had a few people on this show. I've had P and a bunch of other guys on the show, right? And I've asked them before, have you ever heard of a show called Tomato Man? And everyone told me
yes.
no. Everyone told me no.
I know Tomato Man because the song will never leave my head. Tomato.
Oh shit! That's exactly it.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it.
So I was talking to a bunch of people. I was like saying, "Hey, have you ever heard of Tomato Man?" P was like, "No," and I was like, I remember throughout like my time in the last decade or so, right? I've casually brought it up to some people because we were talking about a bunch of different shows, and I was like, "Oh yeah, hey, nothing is as silly as Tomato Man" in my head. And I was just talking about that stuff, and everyone looked at me strange because no one remembered like it on RTM and stuff. But more recently, what happened was that I actually dug up YouTube because God, like, bless every person who's ever actually archived this kind of stuff on YouTube. They've actually posted, someone actually posted the theme song for Tomato Man on YouTube, and I posted it up. and like suddenly like people came out of the woodwork saying like, oh no, I remembered this on RTM and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I wasn't dreaming this, I wasn't hallucinating this as a kid.
Well, at least people remember Tomato Man, but no one
Right.
seems to remember Getter Robo being on TV. So I'm starting to doubt
Right.
myself in that sense.
You should probably post it up and we'll see how it goes. I'm quite sure somewhere along the lines, like someone on your timeline would probably say, oh no, I remember that.
Yeah, maybe.
But okay, but okay, now, but that's the cute thing, right? Like, so did Ghetto Robo get you interested, or like was it just like was a show that you sort of high-buyed and like you know, transited across kind of thing?
Not specifically Getter Robo. You know, back then it was sort of the golden age of Hollywood, and I mean, that sounds so old. When manga first, so a lot of Chinese publishers obviously translated manga and started publishing them in the Pasar Malam and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And obviously, I had no. Even today, I still do not read Mandarin. So while it was appealing to buy those things, I could never read or understand the story. So in no specific timeline, in no specific order of time, I would say, there were several things that sort of, even in Hollywood, things like, and I say this because even up to today, I'm always fascinated by the mecha genre, and things like Terminator, Robot Jocks, if anyone remembers that.
Holy shit.
I think Robot Jocks had the most profound effect on me in terms of mecha, because after I watched the movie, I built a little like mecha, and this is before before I was introduced to Gundam.
Right.
I would build a robot out of cardboard and toothpicks.
Nice. Holy.
That was
wow.
Yes.
So you had movable joints and everything?
It was movable joints, yes. Yeah, all because of Robot Jocks.
Holy shit.
And then yeah.
Wow, so you're a mecha geek then? Like, I never knew this, by the way.
Yep, I'm very much a mecha geek.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay. So as time went on, obviously, like a lot of people, everyone got invested into Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Detective Conan, all those, like Dr. Slump. Really, really, sort of the very first few publications by Comics House in Malay. And that was pretty good, because that basically gave access to a lot more people to anime or manga.
So just to check. So basically, even though your initial spark of interest were in some forms these like Getter Robo and all that, right? It wasn't until Dragon Ball and comic houses like Malay localized comics and stuff like that you truly found yourself like, oh yeah, I'm really getting into this culture, this media, this content, this kind of sort of stuff.
That's right. Yep.
Wow.
And I think the longest, because when you're young and back then, watching TV wasn't much of a, like, you didn't have many opportunities to watch TV. You'd come home, you do your homework, you had dinner, and then maybe watch half an hour of RTM1 or something, and then that's it. And for those who remember back then, quote unquote cartoons would only be shown around 6 to 7, maybe 5 to 7.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I would catch glimpses of anime. So like Getter Robo, I think I only watched one episode, which was that particular one, and not even the whole episode.
Wow.
So yeah.
And that was enough to spark your interest.
yeah. And then later on, the very first anime that I truly followed, kept up with, was Akazuki Cha-Cha, if anyone remembers that as well. That was
right.
there was amazing stuff like it. And it is no mecha, but but it sort of had that amazing effect on me. And because we didn't have access to Dragon Ball, we didn't have access to Sailor Moon. These are the days before NTV7, before Astro.
Right. This is Mega TV that time, right? It was like Malaysia's cable TV that period, right?
I think it was before that.
Oh, is it?
Prior to even that.
Was it?
I think it was on TV3 or no, it wasn't on TV3. Was it TV3? It probably just RTM1, really.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Atticus, I have to ask.
When Dragon Ball. Yep.
Just to ask, and I feel that this asking this question before, but basically I do want to ask, where would you located at this time? Were you in Malaysia and specifically like in Selangor or like any particular part? Oh, please don't dox yourself. Please don't dox yourself completely. By the way, just like a rough area would be enough.
No, I don't live at that place anymore. This is obviously so long ago. Yeah, I was in PJ. For the most part, when I got interested in all this.
Okay.
And then we moved again. Well, we moved to PJ. So, and that just continued.
Okay, so basically all the bits about like checking out those sort of pirated comics that's translated into Chinese and all that, those were also in PJ lah. Just to contextualize it.
That's right.
Cool. Right. So yeah, so Akuzuki Cha-Cha, then what was next for you? This was Akuzuki Cha-Cha, if I'm not mistaken, was like what? Was it late 90s? Was it right? Was it late 90s?
Sounds about right. I think I might have been around 12 at the time.
Whoa.
So that would be like some mid 90s.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so Dragon Ball, and I remember in high school, a friend of mine and I who also liked Dragon Ball, we also had a similar interest in Ultraman, and then we started co-drawing like Ultraman comics.
Wow.
He would draw some, I would draw some, and we would chat about this made-up story, and then we just draw it all out in the good old buku latihan.
making fan fictions before the internet.
Yes. In terms of like fan comics, doujins. Yes, making doujins before the internet.
That is the more accurate one, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so I think the mainstay was Dragon Ball for me. Being a shonen manga, it's a pretty typical interest for a boy.
Yeah.
And then later on, with the emergence of NTV7, Astro, we started getting more exposed to other things like, is it Vanguard? Slam Dunk,
Was Vanguard already aired at the time? I think. Wait, are we talking about the?
Was it Vanguard?
Vanguard's an anime about card games. I'm not sure whether Vanguard was out at that time yet.
No, okay, I might be thinking of something. It's a mecha story about.
I think you're talking about Van Dread.
Van Dread, yes, Van Dread. That shows my memory.
Well, okay. To be fair, I've actually had the pleasure and the embarrassing pleasure of meeting some people from the studio who made Van Dread, and I blanked out. I was blanked out that they made it.
No!
I legit blanked out that they were the guys making it, and I was like, "Holy shit, no!" I only found out after we parted ways from that meeting, and I was like, I felt like I want to bury my face in the sand. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking about exposure to anime manga, there wasn't really much per se. With the severe lack of access to the internet, and back then it was 28.8 kbps, if people remember that as well.
Yeah.
The days before 56k and dial-up modem, and like you want to download one picture, it takes you like 5 minutes or something.
I know, right? Like nowadays, it's like, what are you talking about? Like even scrolling through Instagram the way we do now is a technological impossibility back in the day, right?
yes. So it would have been so much more helpful back then.
Yeah, I know. Oh, but okay, I want to ask then, because like I grew up near PJ as well myself, and around the same time when Dragon Ball was still serialized, and this was the original Dragon Ball versus like Dragon Ball and then Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yep.
I actually sought out a lot of comic bookstores, and some of these stores where they would rent out comics to read comics. They would have like a full series of like things like Samurai X and a lot of these other comics, and actually that got me into a habit of reading comics well before like anime became a bigger thing in KL and stuff. Did you not seek out these kind of places yourself?
No, because as a kid we weren't, in my parents' case anyway, we weren't allowed to go out very often, and even the shop that I frequent, which was in Sentosa, if anyone knows that place, we will only visit maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, and that was a shop I remember, and it was there for a long time, even with the emergence of or your manga readers online.
Really?
It was still there. Oh yeah, it survived for quite a bit, and then I think COVID happened, and then that was it. Like most businesses, it suffered. So I remember, it was a small little bookshop, run by an old man, very typical. And yeah, that was where we would get all the latest manga, and it was, because we didn't have much money back then, we were basically only allowed to buy like one book, or two, maybe two at best.
Yeah, I know that feeling, man.
Yeah, and because obviously there were a lot more Chinese manga to choose from, we didn't really get into it because we would see the pictures and, oh yeah, this looks nice, but I don't know what the story is, so there's no point buying it. So, but Dragon Ball, that was, for me, that was it. That was like, wow, this looks cool, and then and we're talking about Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z.
Basically the pre-Goku growing up kind of arcs, right?
Correct. Yes. So we started reading it, and the translation was pretty good as well, fully in Malay, and whoever did it back then did an amazing job.
Congratulations. Give a shout out to whoever's out there if you're listening.
Correct, if they're listening.
I swear, there, like everyone I speak to so far on this show, like a lot of us, we definitely feel like a lot of gratitude for those people, whether official or unofficial, right? Who stepped up to translate a lot of this stuff and typeset a lot of comics and make them accessible to a lot of us who, unfortunately, at the time, distribution just did not cover.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So
definitely right.
Yeah. So they actually, a lot of us recognize that like these guys were the ones who, in many ways, contributed and seeded the popularity of anime for a lot of people like us. Yeah. And I was just on the point, I was like talking to some guys in Indonesia last week, right? The last show. And the truth is that it's the same over there too. Unfortunately, because distribution doesn't reach as easily, piracy becomes the dominant way in which some of these things gain its initial following. And then once the interest and the culture has somewhat developed, it becomes easier for officially licensed stuff to come in, and people are more willing to pay for it because they recognize it as something that they like, they want, and hey, I'm just going to throw money at it, that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, okay. So so we've gone past Dragon Ball. So we've got Dragon Ball, which is somewhere around the late 90s kind of period. Let's talk about the stories that lead up to our main show, which is CosMas. How do you get yourself involved? Your interest your interest with Ultraman and Dragon Ball back in the day like translate into you getting engaged or involved with CosMas?
Yep. So obviously one of the as for me anyway, one of the first few places that sort of started having conventions was Singapore. And again, as a high school student with like literally no pocket money or allowance or any way to generate income, getting there on my own was an impossibility. One day, a good friend of mine came up to me and said, "Hey, look at this, newspaper article," and they were advertising for, I believe they were advertising for the very first Comic Fiesta, 2002, in the Chinese Assembly Hall.
Yes, that is correct.
And I was stoked. I was like super excited and like, oh my god, it's like Anime Con like in Malaysia, what? And then we have to go. I don't care what people say. I have to go to this.
Wow.
And then so that's what we did. We what day was it? Probably the weekend.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the weekend. I was quite sure.
Yeah. So, in my very early days of geekdom, you just wore whatever attire that you had that vaguely resembled Japan.
Yeah.
So I had a summer yukata which was dark blue, and you probably see it again in some of the photos that we might pull up soon. And yeah, just wore it there, and so, and I was excited. I went there. There was initially nothing when I first attended, and then I remember the very first thing that I saw was I might stuff up names. A Ryoga.
Was it? Right. Mahaf, right?
From Mahaf, yes.
Yeah. That's
a Ryoga cosplayer, literally getting lost trying to get into the Chinese Assembly Hall. Who is a good friend of mine as well, by the way. So I was quite excited even before entering the building. Like, oh my god, look at this guy. He's like he's cosplaying the character that gets lost, and he's actually lost.
What a great way to start your experience, right?
That's right. So I went in, the space was cramped, but that didn't matter to me because it was all it was all about the experience. And so obviously I met a lot of people there that until this day I still consider close friends. And yeah, it was unreal. It was a new experience. People were selling doujins and stuff. They were drawing the tables and advertising stuff. Cosplays walking around. There was a stage, and just had fun throughout the event. And
nice.
A very prominent member of the group who is a famous artist as well. Let's just call that person Casey. Was singing the Sakura Taisen opening. Nice. And like, oh my god, like I know that song, and oh my gosh, she's singing it so well. Like what?
Wow.
And then that just like fueled the whole geek in me, and it was just like freaking out internally.
Nice. I think so. Yeah. So a couple of quick things on that note, right? Like so basically, like CosMas wasn't even an idea prior to CF, is it?
No, it was not. It was never like in my head, prior to CF being I used to think, I wonder why there's no cons in Malaysia. Like, well, maybe I'm just missing out, or it's hard to tell because there was no internet back then.
Right.
Message boards were very inclusive. You have to.
Right. So that's not the word. Inclusive isn't the right word.
Sorry, exclusive in terms of it was hard to get into one because you didn't know it was there.
Insular.
Sort of
They're very insular.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the word you're looking for is insulated.
Yes.
They're very isolated from each other, right?
Isolated, correct. Yeah. So you would have to know people who were already in the forums or message boards to get into it.
Yeah. And a lot of us take this for granted, but like this is pre-Google era.
Oh yes, pre-Google. I think this was early days of IRC.
Yeah.
For those who know what it is.
Yeah. Like we were depending on what Yahoo was it? Was it Yahoo search at the time?
Oh my goodness, Yahoo search.
It was Yahoo search at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yahoo search. But even then, it didn't. It didn't come up with a lot of search results because it was very US centric.
Right.
Yeah. So you had to rely on newspapers, word of mouth, that sort of stuff. So when the newspaper came out and that friend of mine showed it to me, he's like, "Oh, yes, we have to go. We must go."
Nice.
So
wait. So
we went.
I'm sorry. I just. Oh, okay. I wanted to ask just as a quick follow-up. That means the forums that eventually became a home for a lot of people from for CosMas and stuff like that also only came after like CFO2?
Possibly. I don't know the history of the early days of the forums, like the CF forums.
Oh no! I'm talking about the CosMas forums.
Oh yeah, no, that did not exist back then. It only existed after we sort of I guess realized CosMas. I think
that's interesting. I'll let you fill in the blanks a little bit afterwards, but like so for context for anyone who's listening, right? So I've been doing the show for a bit, and often I do come in with some impression of like what it's like because I do like it's lived experience for me, right? But the truth is that I've only entered the scene somewhere in 2003, and so any stories prior to like between 2002 2003 and any time before that is a lot of hearsay to me, and I really never really sat down and talked to as many people as I really should have, to get a glimpse of everything else. To me, I've like until today, I always thought MCC and and CF, right, were two entities that sort of like birthed at around the same time. I didn't realize that there was actually a sequential order to this.
Yeah, so CF came first, and CosMas was a result of that. So I don't remember how I met the other initial members of CosMas, but it was through most likely Hangouts.
Ooh.
And there was a lot of chatting and going out to have mama back then was a new thing for me as well. And I hang out with all these people, and one particular person who has wished to remain anonymous. So let's just call her M.
Yeah, M sounds good.
M sounds good. Yep.
Yes, Miss M.
Miss M proposed the idea to me, like, hey, we should like totally like start our own con. And then I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this, like without knowing any of the logistics of how to start a con. We was like, yeah, we should. Yeah. And then so I think it started out with maybe 5 of us, I would say. And so obviously I didn't I was just there to sort of volunteer. So yeah, I'll help you out in whatever way I can. I don't know how to start a con, but let's wing this. Let's see how we go. And there were a couple of members in there who seemed to already know what it entails starting a con. So obviously the first thing we had to do was look for a venue. And we thought, hey, you know what? Since back in that time, Sungai Wang, if people remember, was sort of the place to be, the place to go for anything sort of anime game related.
Yeah.
You would go there and you could find literally anything, like OST, like physical CDs, like box sets for anime in Chinese and English, and anime figures, Gundam kits, everything, anything you could think of. So it was the only place you could get all that sort of stuff. So we went there, scouted out, and eventually we thought, oh yeah, so one was had a roof space, like a undercover roof space that they don't use at all in general.
Oh.
And again, disclaimer, memory, it was 20 years ago, so whatever I say may or may not be accurate. So we moved on from there. We got the place. Obviously Sengawang needed funding for it. As all places, you need to rent the space out. And then we were like, oh, how do we rent the space out? And then, oh yeah, we need to get sponsors and stuff, because we were like some of us were high school students back then.
Oh, okay.
Or
so this was
just fresh into college, so we had like no money, to rent such a space. Fortunately, another team member who left on less than amicable terms, I would say, back then was of pretty significant help. He was vastly older than all of us. But I would say he did help out a lot with sort of the creation of CosMas, even though not many people have mentioned him. So thank you if you know who you are.
Can we get an initial? Or do we want to just leave it alone?
Let's just call him Mr. W.
Mr. W. All right. We'll just leave it at Mr. W.
We'll say Mr. W. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. W.
Thank you, Mr. W.
Yeah. Well,
so he basically maintained the initial CosMas forums. And give me a second.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, yeah, so for anyone else, so anyone who's around, we're going through the initial formations of CosMas. One of a fairly short-lived cosplay event in Malaysia, but a pretty significant one nonetheless. For those who were there back in the day, I just as a quick recap, there weren't really many ACG-related events. And while CF was there, the only others that were worth mentioning were like the Animax event, which most of us understood as a one-time event. And then after that, there was the Gempak events, which is something that they routinely did once every 2 years at Sungai Wang. So for most of us who were into geek culture in general, or like we're into nerdy stuff and all that kind of things, you just wouldn't have an event to go to, because I mean, these things happen, but like you really wouldn't know how, like when the next one would be, that kind of thing. So Atticus here with us, he was one of the early organizers, and whether you like it or not, and that came out wrong, but like what a lot of people would take for granted is the fact that when the scene is as dry as it was, right, the fact that there were active people who had an interest in trying to do more events, in my opinion at least, right, encourage organizers to just go, hey, this is not going to be some desolate island that we're trying to build something that nobody wants, that kind of thing,
That's right.
Yeah, so you look at each other in those early days, we would look at each other and go like, hey, you're doing that, let's try something else, or hey, you're doing that looks like fun, maybe I could do it too, things like that. So you have this kind of relationship where it's like we all know that the audience is actively looking for more, And between events, we were like, oh yeah, let's help each other out. How can we make this better for everybody? You know, you do your thing, I do mine. We have our own spin and things like that. You know. So,
Exactly right.
Exactly right. So yeah. So one big reason why I want to put this on there is because at the end of the day, back in what this time was really the early 2000s, the existence of CosMas was a thing, and I don't. You can argue whether it was a small thing or a big thing, but I do think it has influence in the timeline that is the growth of ACG in Malaysia, at least as far as I know. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So Atticus, just before you left, you were mentioning about how Mr. W played this huge role in helping set up the forums and maintain the forums, the early forums that eventually housed, or rather became the home of CosMas.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I mean maintain the forums, I mean on the technical side, not the moderation side.
Right.
Moderation side obviously was handled by other people.
Right.
So
did the forums come like after the event or like before? What's the timeline like roughly at this point? Because you said like you've reached out to Sungai Wang, and then from there, like the next step was the forums, is it?
I'm not sure anymore, but I think initial forum started prior to the event happening. It was sort of set up to we wanted to get it going as well because we were trying to emulate what CF had, which had sort of a message board forum thing, and we thought, we should like start with what they have, and at least work out something different. So Miss M, who basically was the visionary at the time, so to speak, imagined an event that now Comic Fiesta, unlike today, I would say some of its core members up to today very much still wanted Comic Fiesta to be comic centric, doujin centric, and not cosplay, and with a little sprinkling of cosplay and games and stuff. But with the way things work, it's a little hard to do that. So back then, Comic Fiesta was very much just doujin and stuff. Right. But with doujin events, there's no, you can't just say like, oh yeah, you're cosplaying, no, you can't come in. Oh yeah, you're gaming interest, you can't do that. So back then, CosMas was designed to be cosplay centric. Hence the name CosMas, Cosplay Malaysia.
Right.
We wanted it to be a cosplay event, and I thought, hey, that sounds like fun. We'll think of some things we could do, like activities or whatnot for cosplayers to do, maybe. So that's what we did, and open up. I think we got some publishing sponsors back then to get us the space, and we had to come up basically with our own designs and decorations and sort of stuff. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was part of the design team that created the mascot for CosMas. I don't remember anymore.
Okay, I'm going to concede this, and this goes out absolutely horrible. I actually am not aware of CosMas's mascot.
Yeah, I mean, she was up there. In some of the photos, you can see her in the background being set up.
Shall we pull up a photo?
Let's pull up a photo.
Let's pull up a photo.
Let's pull a photo. Let's look at.
Yeah, let's
go down memory lane.
Yeah, let's pull out a photo. Give me a minute. I'm gonna pull out the first photo you sent to me. All right. So this is actually a photo that Atticus has sent to me, and one reason why I find this really entertaining is that in this photo you can actually see someone writing in the sponsors' names on the backdrop.
Yeah, you can see the blue yukata that I was talking to you about.
This is how like events in the early 2000s were held. These are early ACG events. They're so early
Yes.
that
Good old
like
handwritten black
yeah,
backboard.
yeah, like legit. This is what like this is fascinating.
So yeah, the little green, the yellow mascot in the background. I'm not
There we have it.
sure if I was part of the team that created it. But yeah, again, it's been so long ago.
Atticus, if you don't mind me asking, yeah, this is
Mhm.
this is an interesting one because this is actually a scanned copy of a photo, right? And
Yes,
and there is actually a date here, which is really amazing because this basically has a date basically that postmarks when that first CosMas was held.
that's right.
Um,
So this is actually a practice round. I think this is for
Also, it was rehearsal.
possibly the day. Yeah, I think it was the Friday before the event. So
Oh,
well, all the balls being set up. I think I was practicing for an opening performance or something. You can see me there, and a couple of other members
kachi,
of
kachi, kachi, kachi,
the
kachi,
ACG
kachi,
team.
kachi, kachi.
Yes,
We're not going to name anyone else, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. We're going to make it a point not to name anyone else because some people have actively like requested that, hey, like we can tell the stories and all that kind of stuff, but let's not name drop anybody, right?
that's right.
So we're going to respect that, and we're not going to do that. And yeah, but basically, yeah. But Atticus has very graciously acknowledged, like, openly said, yeah, let's just point at him and all that.
That's right. Look at me. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. That wonderful cine frame that all of us no longer have.
Yes. Good old high school body. Yeah, so
Right.
we got the funding for it. We set up now to clarify, the event was held in the rooftop space, and the space was essentially a long corridor.
Oh, okay.
So this is on the end, the end of the corridor, sort of towards the fire escape.
Right.
And if you go on the opposite end, it would be going into the main shopping atrium.
Right. I think we have a picture of the corridor. I'm going to swap over to it right now. It's a little blurry,
Mhm.
but I think it still works as a illustration to the corridor itself.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I think I should credit the photos that's actually being shared. The photographer is actually tagged, like has her name on the bottom right. So all these pictures are thanks to Misao Ho. So thank you, Misao, for the photos.
Also a very old and active member of the ACG scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is actually a picture of the corridor itself, right?
That's right. This is the corridor, and then you can see, I believe the desks for any artists and stuff will be set up on the left and or right, including all sponsor booths back then.
Let me pull up.
If they wanted to open up.
Let me pull up a picture of the desks. So this is a picture of the desks itself, right?
The current photo. I think you see everyone's kind of leaning toward the left, towards something. So that's most likely the desk area. There are other photos as well that can show some of the other desks. They were green tablecloth. I have no idea why we chose green.
Right, these were the current one. Oh, you actually had a choice.
That's right. There it is. So you can see the good old cosplay days where everything was handmade. But some people really did a good job for what we had back then.
Okay, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we're supposed to have still going through the journey of setting up, like arranging for everything. This is already event day itself, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right. So so you've got a venue. The forums are set up right now. Were there any particular difficulties in setting up the forums back in the day?
So like most forums back then, you also had to get a subscription to a server space where the forums will be hosted, for images and stuff like that. So there was, and a lot of these places were overseas. So getting the funding, sending the funding over, to an overseas entity, and then most of them operate on the US time frame. So we'd be awake in the morning and they'd be asleep. And then once we set that up, it would be like, okay, here's your forum space, and that's it. Yeah, here's a template, go crazy. And then so the problem was figuring out how to customize the forum, set limitations to members and all that sort of stuff. And again, very big thanks to Mr. M for
Mr. W
solving all of that for us. Sorry, Mr. W.
Yeah.
Getting W and M upside down.
Yes, I know, right? It's oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, but...
and by the way, it is 12 a.m. on this side of the world. This is for the listeners.
Once again, thank you very much. As a reminder for anyone who's listening, like Atticus is we're having this chat, and Atticus is physically currently in Australia, so
that's right. That's all good.
Anyway, but but you brought up something that I've never actually thought about, which is surprising because when we were talking with P a couple of sessions back, right? One of the more interesting things that we brought up was how CF was handling early orders for early bird orders, right, for tickets, using mail order. Like basically, you pay money to your post office, and they'll treat it as, oh yeah, this is like, we'll give you a check, and then the person on the other end would be able to cash that check.
Yes, I remember that.
Right. So did you guys did the same when it comes to your forums, or how did that, because you mentioned trying to coordinate with somebody across the world who's US based and all that kind of stuff, was this
that's not for tickets, that's just for the setting up the forum.
Right,
tickets
exactly.
wise.
No. Yeah. I am talking about setting up the forums, for the forums and stuff, right? Was it exactly the same? Did you do a mail order, or how did it work for you guys?
I'm not sure of this information because again, I didn't have, I wasn't the main, I guess I was part of the core group, but I wasn't sort of exposed to a lot of the information.
Right, that's too micro. That's too micro for you, really.
That's right. So Mr. W, again, solved all that for us because he had access to. I believe he just had access to credit cards that he could use overseas.
Right.
So that made the process a lot easier for all of us.
Naruhodo.
And that was good. Yeah. So we basically just plan an event, chat about what we're going to do, how we're going to set up the backdrop. I believe it was also KC that did the artwork for our mascot. I believe, because it does look like it's her artwork back in the day.
Wow.
And we just manually enlarged it. There was no, we didn't have access to mass printing back then. Again, we were all like kids, essentially.
So when you meant by manually and enlarged it, what do you mean? Do you guys just redraw it completely?
Correct. Yeah. Someone would get a printout or something and then redraw it on a larger scale on the board, and they did it pretty. I'm gonna say,
nice.
Whoever did it, yeah. So kudos to the team. There were a lot of talented people back then that did a lot of good things. There was a lot of things that went into it. Rentals of the tables. Obviously the tablecloths weren't ours, I think. Even if they were, I'm not sure why we would buy green tablecloths. Yeah.
Well, I have to ask at this point, is the green bothering you that much?
Now it does. Back then, whatever. Like as long as I think the theme for us was going to be sort of gold, like yellow and green, hence the mascot colors, and the typography is all in yellow. So maybe that was the general idea back then. I don't remember anymore. Yeah, and then so after planning and setting out a schedule for the events of the day, and obviously we published our own, like, comic Fiesta had their own forums for like self promotion, I believe, back then. So we obviously utilized that space to make people aware that oh, hey guys, everyone that went to Comic Fiesta, we have a new event coming up that's about cosplay and stuff. You should come over and and have a visit.
Check us out and all that shit, right?
That's right. Yeah. So back then there was only like 2 cons going on,
Exactly.
which is CF and CosMas. So it's like, yeah, sure, we'll go to CosMas. Why not? And CF would be sort of year end. Where school holidays and stuff were happening, so it was easier for people, and we would do the middle of the year, so that we wouldn't clash schedules with them, and just compete for the same crowd. So these days,
right,
as most people in Malaysia know, there's so many events happening, so many places. It's like I don't know how people get to like 4 or 5 cons within a weekend or something. It's a bit extreme example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. To be fair, Malaysia is a pretty big like country, but
it is, yes.
I think at the time, especially back in like the early 2000s, right, no one would imagine the sort of the number of fans or the number of potential attendees, right, for events like this, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, some fans would travel all the way from Penang,
right,
just to attend CosMas, and one of them is a core member as well, but she was down here studying in university. Oh, they call it university, but it's more like technical institute, I would say. And she was my my kohai, my junior. Oh yes. Funnily enough, the first time I met her, it was obviously I won't be dropping names as well, and this is not Miss M or Casey, someone else. Was at CF, but I digress. Yeah, so when the day came, things were going down. We came in, obviously, to even for that picture where everything is being set up. I'm not even sure if that's the day before or the day itself, but just hours before the day itself.
So one thing that's really interesting, right, is that because due to modern technology, I can find out if the 14th of June 2003 is what day. It is a Saturday.
Right. So that would have been hours before the event started.
Yeah, Google is that powerful, by the way. Thank you, Google.
So as you can tell, everything was very down to the last minute. But what wasn't back then? It's basically our esteemed volunteers in the background there working on the typography down to the last second. We were doing rehearsals, and people started pouring in hours before the event happened as well. So we was like, oh no, please don't see our work in progress.
Oh god.
But,
yeah,
there were no doors. It was basically
no right.
No, it was a free space, so people could just walk in. Because it was a rooftop space, so the general public had no. Well, it was really rare to see any people from the general public walk up there. But anyone that came up there was basically people who were like, "Oh, is this CosMas? Oh, it has to be. Right? There's a giant board at the back that says CosMas."
Okay.
Yeah. So the event went on, and we had some of our core members who were security, and they were, funnily enough, dressed up as the Turks from Final Fantasy VII.
Do we have a picture? Let me see whether we have. I don't think we have a
Yes,
picture. Do we have a picture?
we do. We do. Yes.
Oh, I think I see it. Okay, I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. There we go. Let's bring this one up. There we go. Oh God.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's the one.
What is it? Why is my cropping so weird? Oh no. Okay, never mind. I'll just leave you alone.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think they were, that's me on in the yukata, very obviously.
You're completely covered though.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's the sandals, the mismatched sandals. That was funny. But yeah, the Turks, which acted as our sort of pseudo security back then. I thought was pretty funny, but they did a good job. And not that we had any issues back then.
Yeah, I mean, like, to be fair, like back in the day, right? Like the average attendance is what, 300, 400 people nowadays? Like back in the day?
Was it that big?
Oh, it's not even that. Okay, cool.
I mean, it could be. We never kept. I don't think we kept track of.
Right. So
I mean, obviously, with the ticket sales, we would have known, how many people there are. But
were there tickets at that time? I actually wasn't sure.
I think so. Were there tickets? There would have been. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to fund anything.
Oh, okay.
I think. Were there tickets? I think there would have been because CF sold it. Oh no, did CF even sell tickets? No, CF was open invitation.
Well, okay. So let
me. Yeah, because I don't remember buying tickets for CF.
Right.
The first CF. So it might have been that. Yeah, CosMas might have been there as well. So that was again the difficult part of hosting an event where you try and make it absolutely free.
Right.
And it's like, oh, we're going to cough up this money from, But again, thanks to those sponsors that contributed to the event. And yeah.
So just for the record, right, as a quick reminder, because I actually had to pull up the data figure because I actually have access to it. CF's
really?
official records for the first event, 2002, right? It's actually 500 people. Yeah. So
wow.
So I think it's fair to estimate like CosMas around like maybe around the same, if not slightly smaller. What was your impression this time? Was it smaller than CF, around the same as CF?
I think it was around the same as CF, so I guess it would have been around 500.
Right. Anyway, okay, let's go through some photos together, shall we?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go from the top. This is the next photo actually on your list that you sent to me. This actually has a really nice image of all your initial sponsors and supporters.
Yeah, that's right.
Including like Starbucks stores. What is this? This is John's Academy?
John's Academy. I believe it's an art academy back then. I don't think they exist anymore.
Wow.
Probably absorbed by oh wait, no. John's Academy. I might be looking at the wrong thing.
No worries. Let's go into some more. Yep. Let's go through some slightly more recognized names. And I'm going to call bias on this one. My bias, like Anime Tech. Anime Tech was actually a huge supporter for CF as well for a long time. But I don't think they're around anymore. Are they still around? Do you happen to know?
I have no idea.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of the sponsors here are basically the same as what CF had, because that was just how limited we were in terms of getting sponsors. There weren't many people interested in, again, with the lack of exposure to anime, manga as well. When we presented to sponsors, like, oh, hey, we're holding this event, and then the initial response would be like a cartoon event, and there will be the purists who'll be like, oh, how dare you say cartoon? It's anime, not
really?
cartoon. Oh yeah. We were very back then. We were very forefront about like what we considered cartoons
Right.
and anime, and it's like you never say one is the other. This isn't just an insult to one or the
Blasphemy.
other.
It's blasphemy.
Blasphemy,
That's
yes.
what it is.
Unfortunately, a lot of sponsors weren't educated back then or exposed to the culture, and yeah, they thought everything that looks animated or looked kid-like was cartoon. And the sponsors were like, I don't know. I mean, it's the first of its kind. It's a lot of money you're asking back then. I don't think we'd be interested in organizing, like contributing to be a sponsor, so on and so forth. Some of those companies came around in the end, and they went on to possibly sponsor future CFs. But I think a lot of them was kind of like, we're not sure. We'll say no, and that was it.
Well, that is unfortunately it is hard back in the day. Like I like back when I was helping out with CF as well, there was a time when we were trying to look out for sponsors as well, and all of us we recognized how difficult it was. Not only was it an issue where like, hey, it's going to be a full-time job to do it, but there was always this issue about asking for money for what essentially is a fan event, right? Like even CF's running tagline was always like "buy fans for the longest amount of time." It still is.
Oh yes, yeah.
But we were using that whole phrase like "buy fans for fans" kind of thing, and asking sponsors for the big bucks when your events kind of generally recognized as pretty niche, right? Becomes this.
That's correct.
Like, oh, does it really make sense kind of thing, right?
That's right. And more on that, like I'll touch a little bit on that later on as well when we talk about so the later years, the later year of of CosMas.
Sure. Right. I want to ask one quick thing though, since I've shrunk this picture back up, right? What is the name of the CosMas mascot? Because I actually have no idea.
I have no idea as well. It has been so long. Yes, it's been too long. It's dumb.
Because
I'm not even sure we gave her a name.
Really, she's unnamed.
I think we might have just said like, "Oh, this is the CosMas mascot." That's it, and then we left it as that. She had no personality, no name, no nothing. Just
she has personality. Look at those eyes. She has personality. I dare declare she has personality, but it is kind of sad that she's not named.
Yeah. I think even CS mascot. I'm not sure if she even had a name back then.
Oh no, she did.
She did. Okay.
She did.
Yeah,
I was pretty sure, certain of it because, well, okay. To be fair, I cannot say definitively because I wasn't there for 2002, right? But I know by 2003, when I was talking with the team, which was like after the 2003 event, and like because I joined roughly for 2004. By that point, there was already like generally acknowledged names for coffee already at the time. So
that's right. Yeah.
So it was
originally meant to be a joke, but it stuck.
right. So so it stuck around, and the thing is that it was always discussed at that time, like it was a done deal. Like it wasn't something that's new or needed to be discussed or anything else like that. It wasn't a lingering thing. It was no, we're gonna call it. Her name is Coffee. That's it.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't remember if our mascot had a name. If anyone else can figure it out.
Yeah. I should probably mention this thing. This is really cute, by the way. I lingered on this photo for a while. But I should probably bring up this thing. You know that meme when we talk about like, oh, what we think games are like 20 years ago and what games are like really 20 years ago kind of thing? Right? This is a picture of a cosplayer for Yuffie 20 years ago.
Yes.
So
That's right.
what everyone thinks as a game 20 years ago, and to be fair, by this point, FF7 is actually pretty old already because we have cosplayers here who are cosplaying from FFX2, right?
That's right. That's
so
right.
so yeah, the FF7 is more than 20 years old. Like the rebirth came well beyond the 20-year mark.
Correct. I believe this is also a Kingdom Hearts Yuffie.
Oh, really? Is it?
Yeah, it's not even the original Yuffie.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. It looks like the Kingdom Hearts Yuffie.
Let's link
Wow.
around.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, here we have a banner for the one of your sponsors in the background. I recognize X-Fresh because I've actually had their magazines before.
Yeah.
I think most of us won't know them anymore nowadays because I don't think they're around anymore.
No, I don't think so as well.
Yeah. Okay, now this is a fun photo, and I have no idea what's going on. Do you still remember?
So I think back then it was I believe it was a skit.
So
Did we have competitions back then? I think we had cosplay competitions. So they would either come up and do a performance or show off their costumes, and then there was a prize that we won. And we have Lois in the channel. Wow, long time no see.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, so this is obviously, back then, there was no digital cameras back then. Everything was manual. So you take a bunch of photos and hopefully they came out all right. Because you couldn't even see what you were taking until they were processed. Yeah. So this, I believe, was one of the skits that was being performed by some competition, some contestants. I have no idea what characters they are. Obviously, it's hard to tell back then, especially with costumes not being quite so what's the word, refined. So it's sometimes a bit tricky to tell whether they're this character from A or this character from B, or are they even characters at all, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, funny thing, right? Like back in the day, at this early stage of cosplay events and stuff like that, I remember some events were actively saying, hey, if you're a cosplayer, we're going to let you in for free, or we're going to give you a discount and stuff like that. And when I was organizing for events and stuff like that, we constantly would have conversations over how would we tell.
Yeah, that's right.
Because anyone in theory wearing a suit and tie can technically call themselves a Turk.
Yeah, or what's the main character from? There's a character from the Spice and Wolf, or
yeah, right. Yeah, like a lot of those slice of life animes that you're wearing very, very normal clothing.
Correct. Very, very generic clothing. Just a suit and tie. Oh, I'm this guy from this anime, but I can also be this guy from this other anime.
Yes, exactly. I personally love the cutest one. Like what I consider to be cutest one was was any argument for the Evangelon school uniform, the girls' school uniform, which looks exactly like the pinafore that girls wear in Malaysia.
Yes, that's right.
that was
the same color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So some lass could always just come in after school and like literally go, oh yeah, I'm cosplaying, like just off the bat. And
that's right.
Yeah, and just as a reminder for everyone, right? At this time, finding wigs was impossible. So you can't fault anyone for not having a wig.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they were very expensive as well, not just impossible.
Yeah.
I think so. Most people defaulted to either A, dyeing their hair, or B, just straight out not having a wig at all. Just say, yeah, this is my costume, that's it.
Yeah. All right. What do we have here on screen right now on this one?
But you know what? One of the best uses of an umbrella, I would say.
I completely agree, by the way. Like, just for anyone, like, a lot of people might not know this. Like, I saw this in the following year's CF, I believe. Like, no, it wasn't even in CF. I can't remember where I saw it, but I saw it somewhere else. It wasn't at CF. I remember seeing it somewhere else. And it was definitely not at this event. But what happened was that when I saw it, I got super excited. It was the silliest thing ever. When I first saw it, I was the most excited I could be for some guy walking around in an umbrella covered in cloth.
That's right. And some cosplays even up today, you know, they hold such a strong impression that every year they would just attend in numerous cons in the exact same costume, and everyone would be like, oh yeah, I know that guy, you know.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
you know, classic example, Pac-Man. Oh, sorry, the ghost from Pac-Man, rather.
Yes. Do you know they all have names, by the way?
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, look it up later. I don't do it now, but like
Yeah.
all ghosts in Pac-Man actually have names.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same, by the way. On that note, right? It's the same as well, right? As the blocks for Tetris. Even the blocks from Tetris actually have names.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Most people
definitely
don't
did not know that now.
Fascinating, isn't it? Anyway, random information you'll get from me today.
Yep.
All right, we saw this photo earlier. This is the corridor in which the event was being held.
Mm-hmm.
Weird question, because I've asked this when I was talking to Ido, when we were talking about AMG as well. Are the I don't know what to call this, but are the things that are hanging, the paper decorations that are hanging from the roofs, something that you guys did? Was there a conscious decision to like use that as decorations or anything?
I believe it was part of our decorations because the halls had literally nothing on the sides, and you know the.
So is this a Sungai Wang thing, or do you guys like consciously got it yourselves and said, yeah, we're gonna put this up?
I believe we got it ourselves and we put it up ourselves on the day itself, because we couldn't. I think. Oh yeah, that's right. I think Sun Wang didn't allow us to set up prior.
Oh, so there's no pre-setup time.
There's no like, you know, Friday setup for a Saturday event.
Right,
if you wanted to set up, you have to set up on the Saturday itself.
Oh, okay.
Which
so
is like, oh no, this is like a really rushed event. And so I think we had to get some people to go in early just to hang up the strings and stuff.
What time do you guys start decorating everything then?
Oh, I could not begin to tell you. No.
Oh.
I would say early morning, like 8 o'clock, probably.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Mm.
It's still before operating hours, so yes, it's early, but like 8 o'clock's not that bad. Just to share a little bit, yeah. So I've had experience handling some events at shopping malls as well, and they are very strict about this because they don't want setup happening when people should be walking around, right?
That's right.
So as a rule, they'll say you either do your setup after operating hours, which means it's usually after 10, and you have to be done before 10. That means you, at max, right, you have like 12 hours, and that is if you work through the night.
That's right.
So yeah, so we work with contractors who do work with shopping malls and stuff, and they would go like, yeah, this is just insane, but like it is work, and it is what it is, you know? Yeah, and the shopping malls are perfectly justified in their request because, hey, you know, that's how they make their money, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it is what it is. So we when we set up for events in malls, we are very like sort of cognizant. We have to be very cognizant about the setup time and stuff like that. But yeah, so coming back to that question very specifically is because these little hanging bits always remind me of the 90s for some reason. Like it's a very 90s decoration style for events.
It is indeed. Yeah,
it is right. Like you don't see them as much nowadays anymore.
I think people have moved on for it. They probably think that it's too tacky or too old or too messy, and you know, get all tangled up with people and.
Personally, I do think it's messy. But yeah.
And these days, they probably have like better ways to manufacture, you know, fancier decorations and stuff.
Yeah. Like, okay, before anyone calls me out on this, by the way, like that's not my thought back in 2003. Like this mentality of mine is something like this is the 2024 Jared talking, right? Because the fact is, right, like when I saw this back in the day, when I saw these kind of decorations back in the day, it was like, oh, hey, cool, you know, and that's it. Like
Yep, yep.
it's a really small flicker of a thought in my head, but I've just sort of noticed as a pattern because we've been talking about some of these earlier events, and I'm like, oh, hey, a lot of people seem to like doing this.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
All right, next picture. This is Samurai X, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so Samurai X is again one of the the more famous animes back then.
Yeah.
And because who doesn't like a good old samurai show when you're a new anime aficionado, so to speak.
I should probably highlight a small thing that most people might not be noticing, partially because of the screen layout that's on stream right now, but not to look at this guy's face, but just this. These guys are obviously people with Sungai Wang, right? Like,
yeah, so those are the security members that hang around the event just to maintain that we're not some bunch of rowdy teenagers that are gonna cause any troubles.
Oh shit. Yeah. I do apologize for like anyone who's actually watching, because it's really hard to actually frame this onto the screen properly. So I'm just gonna try my best to do this. Let me go at it a little bit. Yeah, okay, there we go. So yeah, you can see the screen here, like these faces. And these faces, as it is, like they obviously, there is this obvious look of like what is going on, right?
Yeah,
like, this
that's
kind
right.
of weird mix of bemusement and this kind of like weirded out kind of sensation that's on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is really really typical of the time.
It was the scrutiny that the anime and manga scene basically had back then. It's like, what is this? Like, what are you? Why are you playing dress up? Like, how old are you? And you're still playing dress up.
Exactly.
Because they think that dress ups are only for kids and sort of stuff.
I think the same as of the people in the background as well. Like, are these people? These are not attendees, right? Through the glass door and stuff.
No, they I think level 6 in Sungai Wang had parking.
Right.
So I think these people were coming down from their parking to the lower levels of the shopping center.
Interesting. All right.
So as they were waiting, they were having a grand old show.
I should probably flag out also as well, like back in the day, like because of how unusual cosplay is, you don't get people who come up to you and asking for photos. Like nowadays, it's a lot more easier, right? Like a lot of people do see you in costume sometimes if you're just walking around after a convention, and people blindly approach you and like, hey, are you from this show? And even if they don't recognize, some people are just interested in like wacky costumes and ask for a photo.
That's right. Yeah.
But back in the day, like people just stare from a distance.
Yeah, because they were intrigued, but they didn't want to get involved in quote unquote such people.
Is that what you think? Like I just thought a lot of people are just weirded out. Like they didn't know how to approach, and they were like, what am I supposed to
that
do?
too.
You know?
Yeah.
Right, next. Kakashi is a really popular character at one point. I should probably just flag that out.
He was probably one of the most so for the younger people, I guess, when you think about the year where Sword Art Online came out, and basically everyone was Kirito is his name.
Yeah.
Basically every cosplay out there was Kirito. And that was essentially what Kakashi was. Just everyone wanted to be Kakashi or Naruto, because oh my god, he's the coolest character. Everybody wants to be him. He wears a face mask, so it's perfect. I don't have to show my face for people who were obviously self-conscious about how they look. And even for me, back then when I was cosplaying, it was always the self-consciousness that told myself, I don't look like this character, why should I cosplay this character, that sort of stuff. But I think that applied to a lot of people as well back then.
Yeah, like while we're on the topic, I think there is absolutely still a lot of conversation and like uncertainty over where some of these lines should be. You know, some people will still think like, oh yeah, hey, if you don't know the character, you shouldn't be cosplaying it, and you know, and some people argue like, but how much do you really need to know, you know, and stuff like that. And arguments over what you call like true fandom and shit like that, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I don't know. Like I definitely think like, you know, you should be able to enjoy your fandoms at the level that you want to enjoy them. But at some point, it's like, yeah, I mean, if they like it, they like it, kind of thing. Just, I think it really is like you do what you do, you.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
These days, everyone's a bit more, understanding, I guess. In that sense.
Yeah, I think I do agree that I think the situation now has marginally become better. I think in part because not only has there more people more people have got into the thing, and a lot of people who initially got into it weren't too like that particular or that like sort of gatekeeping kind of thing already themselves. So what happens is that like by sheer like number, by sheer quantity, you just have that culture of like the whole culture of quote unquote true fandom kind of thing gradually just diluted and weaned out. So you just don't see that many people about that anymore. So the kind of behavior and thinking just isn't as normalized anymore these days.
Correct. Because you isolate a lot of people, you know, for no reason, and people just there to have fun.
Yeah. I'll be perfectly honest. Even me myself, I've questioned myself on that line a little bit. You know, that kind of thing. I asked myself like, oh hey, I love the aesthetics and all that kind of stuff, but like, for me when I was cosplaying back in the day, and you'll see some pictures somewhere along the lines after this, yeah, like I would ask myself like, is this am I doing a character justice, right? Like this is a question that I would ask myself. But it was much later that I sort of got used to the idea that that's a standard that I'm holding myself to, but it's not a standard that I should hold everyone else to, you know?
That's right.
That kind of thing. At the end of the day, we're all here to have fun. We're all here to enjoy in this kind of geeky culture and geeky practices that we've all come to somehow fall in love with. So, you know, hey, let's you know, you still do the things the way you want to do it, but let's not stop anyone from just having some fun, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Return of the green tables. We saw this picture earlier.
Yes, that's right. The Sayuki team, I think. Sayuki, was it?
Yes, it is. It's Gensoman and Sayuki.
That's right. So they couldn't find someone to cosplay Kojo, hence the missing sign.
That's nice. That's nice. I think it's worth noting as well. The like through these pictures, without realizing it, you can actually sort of get a sense of like some of the most popular series that were in Malaysia back in the day.
Yes, that's right. Personally, I never got into Sayuki. It for me anyway, it didn't appeal to me. Yes, but yeah, it was very popular, especially with the female fan base.
Yep. So, all right, let's move on to the next picture. This is Sasuke, and I do not recognize the other.
It looks familiar, but no, not sure. And you can see on the top left where some photos of a Yuna cosplayer. I think those were the early days of cosplay photo sales.
Wow. They were actual photo prints, aren't they?
Yes, physical like photo paper.
Right, exactly, right? Like because nowadays you'd get you get like full digital prints, right? You don't do we don't do like, you know, we don't go to a Photoshop, and I mean like the traditional Photoshop, not the Adobe Photoshop. Like you
That's
don't go
right.
to a
That's
traditional
right.
Photoshop and like get your photos printed anymore.
Good old Kodak.
Yes.
Yes.
Fujifilm.
Man. Fujifilm. Oh,
Do you know that they're both still around, by the way?
yeah, I do. It's pretty amazing actually.
Yeah, it
They
is.
survived so.
Yeah. They've actually a large part because they've sort of found their own niches. So the films that they do, they are still actually really good, and they actually are used by like professional photographers at different levels.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah,
mm-hmm.
and they're still pretty good. Like if you ever see, um, if you ever see, like people who are like exploring photography and everything else, and if you see them take pictures with using like a old analog camera and stuff, like the results are
That's right.
genuinely different.
Yep.
Yeah. I have to ask you a very important question on this photo.
Yep.
Is this Terry Bogard from
Yes.
King of Fighters, or is it from I can't even remember the other one. I can't even remember the one before. Is it Streets of Rage? I think it's Streets of Rage. Is it Streets of Rage? I don't think it's Streets of Rage.
Out of fighting. I think it's
Is
out
that
of fighting.
I don't even remember this anymore.
But it is Terry Bogard. Yeah. So again, with how people
It's Fatal
with
Fury. What
costumes
am I
back
saying?
then.
It's Fatal Fury.
Fatal Fury. Yes.
What am I even arguing? It's Fatal Fury. Obviously,
right.
it's Fatal Fury. It's on his. It is on his cap. Why am I even
Literally on his cap?
Yeah, it's literally on his cap. It has to be Fatal Fury. Right. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there was I think there was an easier food stall behind there. I think they were one of the sponsors, possibly.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
No. I think I might have flashed some sensitive information. I need to take this down after this then. I'm sorry. I have to private this after this. I literally have to private this after this.
Oh no. Oh well.
I will re-upload. I will re-upload this. Unfortunately, chat will disappear. Unfortunately, but I will re-upload the VOD. Yeah, this is purely my mistake.
Post production.
yeah. Unfortunately, I have to private this after this. I'm so sorry. Yeah. God damn it. That was horrible. That was horrible. Anyway, actually, I'm usually safer than this, but like, yeah. Anyway, okay, let's go into the next one.
Yep.
Oh God, I have no idea what we're talking about here. I'm lost. Can you please tell me?
So this is just talking about the stall behind, being one of the sponsors, possibly selling food. As you know, food is important for everyone, and I think they just got them in just so they can provide congos to some avenue. Give me a second. There was a prior photo, yeah.
Oh, it was a prior photo. Oh, okay, so this
if you go one back, yeah, there we go. Food stalls are back. Yeah. Anyway, we'll just move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So you can see, I think the goth culture was quite new back then as well.
Right.
So yeah, there are a couple of people who were into that.
Right. So, but this goes back to that earlier conversation we had about like how earlier cosplay culture just wasn't very like we had trouble where it's not very definitive where it starts and when it ends, right? Like, oh hey, you're into stuff that just slightly different than what is normal, and hey, yeah, sure, that counts.
That's right. Yep. So people weren't limiting themselves to just anime, games, comics. They were into, what's that word? J-rock, like pop culture in general. So a couple people were some more interested in dressing up as that, which was perfectly fine. It was a little unusual, but back then it's all about just understanding being inclusive of those sort of cultures as well.
Okay, next photo. So we had actually an earlier photo where like there are people singing, and this is also another one of such cases. And the next one we're going to show is also more or less the same. I can't help but to ask, like, was this like back in the day, was singing performances just the most common thing that everyone was doing?
It probably was, because it was one of the easier ways to get into performing. Especially if you go on stage and you're cosplaying yourself, it's a little hard to enact a scene or and this sort of stuff like that. And obviously, not everyone is confident of their acting skills,
but they're confident enough to sing.
But they're confident enough to sing because back then when everyone in the days of MP3 and stuff, and the limitations of how much exposure you could get to songs and stuff, you would just listen to the same songs over and over again, or you just kind of select a favorite song and then it ends up put it on your, depending on what generation you were, your Discman, your Walkman, your and you just listen to the same song over again. It's like, I think I remember the lyrics of this song enough that I could sing it confidently enough, and that was it.
Okay, so next photo, just as a quick recap, this really goes back to that whole, back in the day. I really don't know where these guys are from. Is it from a series? They actually look like they should be from a series, but I really can't tell.
I think the middle one might be from Helsing, maybe.
Okay.
But obviously I could be wrong. The left one again from earlier, couldn't tell you. And obviously Sasuke on the right, classic fan icon on the back.
At some point, you're going to see like a lot of repeated people already at this point. So yeah, I'm not going to go through the last few, large part, because they're more or less the same. They're more or less telling the same stories. I'm just going to keep it at
That's right.
Yep. But yeah. So at the end, let's jump forward ahead a little bit. So was CosMas just a one-day affair back at the time?
I believe it was. Yes, just a one-day event. Couldn't afford to rent the space for more than one day.
Oh shites.
Yeah. I think, and it was good enough for for what it was. I didn't think we needed to extend the event to more than 2 days, more than a day.
What were the team's thoughts at the end of the one day like that?
Sorry, the
teams, like you and the rest of the guys, like Miss M and Mr. W and a bunch of you guys, like what were your thinkings at the end of the event and all that?
We were tired, obviously, and it was with a big endeavor like that. But we were sort of happy that we got it off the ground, and it was like, oh yeah, this is the start of possibly something amazing. If we can keep this going every year. I don't think we really had sort of like a post event like what's a debrief, if that's the word.
Okay, so there's a post-mortem, right?
No, we I don't think we ever did a proper sort of debrief at the end of the event. So it just came up, occasionally in the conversations that we had. I think we were generally happy. We were okay at the end of the very first CosMas to continue planning for the future ones.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's it.
No, because I got a little very excited because I want to share with everyone a small thing that we found while we were preparing for this segment, right? So the funny thing is that, so you guys at the end of CosMas, and we were just looking, so it's the end of the first CosMas, which was 2003. As a quick recap, like we have photo evidence. We have obviously, images that are out there that say like it was on the 16th of June 2003, right?
14th.
Yeah. Sorry. Is it 14th?
14th of June.
Was it 14th?
14th of June. Yeah.
No. Like, was the photos? Oh, the 40 photos. Yeah. So it's 14th of June 2003. And then, like, you guys, you mentioned earlier that like a lot of the promos were done via, like the CF forums and all that kind of stuff. What was really interesting was because one of the things that I was trying to do prior to this was that I wanted to see whether the Wayback Machine had some recording of the old CosMas forums, because like the MCC forums, the Malaysian Cosplay Club forums, which we've not really mentioned as much, by the way, because I believe like MCC itself was supposed to be a separate entity. Like it was supposedly the entity behind CosMas, right?
That's right. Yep.
So, but generally, because we want to talk about the event, let's focus about the event. What was interesting was like I couldn't find the Wayback Machine never took a snippet off the forums. But what is interesting is that you found this one, which is animecons.com. I'm not going to put it in the link because, to be fair, like this is very easy to find, right? But this actually has a recording of CosMas in here. And this is fascinating.
Maintained by...
I have no idea who's maintaining this.
Yeah.
Like,
so we were doing this quick Google search, and somehow someone in the US or wherever it is recorded CosMas as being something that existed.
Correct. So this YouTube video, which I'm going to re-upload at a later date, will be the only other full recording of the story of CosMas to explain this very random note that exists on the internet as well.
Right.
Which makes me really question and wonder, like, how many defunct events have there been already? If you know what I mean. Like, I'm not going to look through every single one of these things here, right? But like, it's just fascinating to know.
It's also very fascinating how they've actually labeled it as a costume convention, not like anime convention or gaming convention. It's very specifically costume convention.
Right. I don't even know whether there's a separate tagging for this. But this is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and for anyone who's wondering, right? CF 2023 is listed here. Like, for anyone who's wondering, like wanting to go and check it out, it's fine. I did it already. It is listed here, 2023. I don't know whether they have every year's worth of information. I don't think it's really updated as well, and it's not my place to update it. But yeah, some people do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Bottom for 2003. How did 2004 come about?
So 2004 was, I think, the start of the logistic problems with organizing an event. It was also kind of the start of some friction between certain members of the team. I'm not sure if I'll go into too much detail about that, but so one of our biggest problems back then in 2004 CosMas was finding a location. So Wang didn't want to rent the space out to us on those days anymore for some reason. So we were searching high and low.
It wasn't a money thing,
eventually it was a money thing.
Oh, okay.
And we, for some reason, didn't have the same amount of sponsors as well that were interested the year before. Again, I wasn't part of the negotiation team with the sponsors back then. As I believe I'd started college, so I was very occupied at the time. So from what I remember, understand is that was a problem with getting sponsors for the event and the location as well. So we ended up in this hotel. Well, I don't think the hotel even exists anymore. And for the life of me, I don't remember what the hotel name was.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it was sort of along the outskirts of KL, as far as I remember.
Mm.
And again, I haven't been back home often enough to, with all the changes to the highways and roads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you,
Yeah.
which jalan and whatever.
Yeah. I wouldn't blame you. It's difficult even for me now. Like I know I'm based in
Mm-hmm.
Singapore now most of the time, but there has been significant changes to some of the road names that
That's right.
when Google tells me like the road names, I no longer have context, and I'll just go like, oh sure, just tell me when to turn, man. Yeah.
So we did the usual, get sponsors, get the event in place, when to scout out the location of the hotel.
Mm.
And it was just a small little meeting room. It was the space was significantly smaller than Sungai Wang, if I remember correctly. But you know what? Time was running out. We did what we could, and we just ran with it. And I think the turnout was less than the first CosMas, if I remember. And again, back then we were still trying to make this. Actually, was it a ticketed event? I believe it started to be a ticketed event. Because from the photos that I see, people are wearing tags that say visitor for some reason. I don't know why we call it visitor. Yeah, but I believe it started to be a paid event, and I think that sort of drove a lot of the fan base away. Even after today, when even in as far as I know anyway, for even an event as big as the current CF, there will still be people complaining about ticket prices. And this thing has been around for like decades. Everyone's going to complain about ticket prices and not going to go. And I think it was especially more prominent back then because a lot of the fan base was students.
Yeah.
Students, or like primary school, or just fresh into secondary school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they would have no money to pay for tickets, and we needed the tickets to be charged appropriately, of course, to match the cost of renting the space and all that sort of stuff. So turnout wasn't that good, if I remember correctly. But nevertheless, we just ran the program the event as we did from last year. And I think it turned out all right. There are not enough photos to sort of jog my memory.
So yeah. So on that note, let's go through the photos a little bit. We're going to go through a little bit faster this time because not only have we been on for a while, but I think these photos don't necessarily tell that much of a story. No offense.
No, they don't.
This is a weird thing, and you'll see what you get when you get into the photos, right? Like there's a lot of cosplay centric photos, which is fine, which is very normal for a cosplay event. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But a lot, because if you look into the background, like if you saw what we were doing with the Sungai Wang photos, right? We were often looking into the background, like to see like bits and pieces of what were the offerings of the event, what else was done, and all that kind of stuff, right? So you compare that, right? As we go through the photos for this year, right? You don't see that as much. You see a lot more. Like there's a lot of empty spaces, and this is obviously the stage that was there, and these were what I would assume to be judging tables.
So that's the guy in charge of the PA. The sound system.
Correct. So this guy in charge of the PA. Correct.
Yeah, I think the judges tables on the right.
Right. Yep. So yeah, so there's a bit of that. And in case anyone's wondering, this is once again Samurai X, which was once again still a pretty big show back in the day, right?
That's right.
And Naruto again. This is FFX, and nobody recognizes this. that's me. In case anyone's wondering. So we were talking about earlier about how a lot of cosplayers use your own natural hair. This is pre-balding,
That's
Jared.
right.
This is pre-balding, Jared. When I have enough hair to actually like thing. And this isn't dyed, by the way. This is actually sprayed on, like one of those weird back in the 90s spray on hair color stuff. Like it washes off like pretty quickly. Yeah.
That's right. There's like this powdery stuff that sometimes just comes off your hair.
Yeah, I know, it's horrible. Whoever thought that was a good idea, man? Yeah. Anyway. Then more Naruto.
Mm-hmm.
And this is literally the last photo we have, which is more Naruto. Now, I'm not saying that like having a lot of Naruto photos is not cool and all that kind of stuff. This is just awesome in its own way. But but like unlike the photos that we were going through in Sungei and all that, like there really isn't as much like of a like there's not as much story in the background, you know? Yeah.
So it's kind of telling of the sort of the vibe of the event back then, so to speak. A lot there, you can see that there's a lack of booths. I think there weren't really many people who were boothing at all, or maybe we didn't actually open up space for booths. Yeah, it was just a lot of things that didn't sort of come, and it was all last minute because a lot of elements didn't come together to the end. So it was a really rushed event, and coupled with certain issues with some core members, the event planning didn't quite pan out as well as we wanted. But we did what we could, and got through the event, and that was it.
So that was the last CosMas, was it? Like literally 2004?
That was the last sort of full event, I guess. So when we were planning, and we're moving on to 2005 now, that was when basically the sunset of CosMas. The end of an event. So I think the drama between the members sort of degraded to the point where we just weren't cohesive anymore. Certain members were sort of using their position to leverage a lot of unreasonable things. And some members have thought, like, hey, what's going on here is unfair. But, well, we won't go into that. It's all the dark days of CosMas. So I decided, and also some of the core members wanted to leave the event to pursue their own sort of personal endeavors, like college and stuff like that.
Real life,
so in the end, I was the one that was left to helm CosMas, and being the one that just wanted to follow around to help out. I had no idea how to organize an event. So I did the best I could. We couldn't source out enough sponsors back then because all the sponsors was also on the sort of the same page where it was like, oh, there's CF already and there's CosMas. Like, why do we want to? They probably didn't word this towards us, but that was the feeling that I got. That the sponsors didn't want to sponsor two different events in the same year. They'd rather focus all their resources into one big event.
Right.
And CF would be the better one, being the end of the year, it's a school holiday. And there's more money to be made there, or exposure to be made there, and which is fair. That's how businesses work, and I don't fault them.
Right.
So I made I believe I made the executive decision to have a mini CosMas I believe it was the first of its kind where it would be a mini event rather than a full size event. And we held it in a park because, first of all, it was a park. We didn't need to pay for a location. So as you can see, some of the photos there, lovely trees. I thought that it would be a pretty good place to for cosplayers to like take photos and stuff with their characters. It would be like a sort of pseudo giant photo shoot meetup, so to speak, which to me anyway back then sort of ties in with the whole CosMas. Like, why take pictures with a concrete background with characters that were never in concrete,
right.
locations.
I guess it's a fair comparison, especially when you look at like the previous photos, right? Where from CosMas 2004, where there were like a lot of Naruto characters against a concrete background, like you're saying.
That's right. So I thought, and you'll see in some of the photos where some of the characters really sort of fit into that background. What was I going to say?
Kati.
Yeah. Yes, the very, very familiar faces right there. It's me. Yeah, so back then, I think as Izumi in the chat mentioned, I think there was some police came out. We didn't realize that we had to get a permit.
Oh no!
To hold an event of that size.
It's officially a legal gathering. It's literally an illegal gathering.
Yeah, we ended up having an illegal gathering, like technically an illegal gathering, because it was a gathering of a certain size of people, and we actually had to get a permit for it.
Yeah, so I'm rapidly scrolling back, like just to give a sense of like to this photo, right, which is the second photo in the album, to give a sense of like just how many people there were roughly. Now, I mean, obviously this is not hundreds of people, but there's at least a good like 20, 30, if not 50 people plus kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, the event was already, halfway through, and I think the police were like, they don't bother, but then they sort of, I think, mentioned it to some of us that it's an illegal gathering.
It is, by the way. Like, for anyone's wondering, like, as long as you're gathering for a purpose, I mean, if it's accidental, it's a different story, right? Like, if for some reason, like, you like nowadays, if suddenly got Pokemon, you're like playing Pokemon Go and stuff, then you guys all like rush to gather and like to capture a rare Pokemon or something like that. Then obviously no one can fault you on that because that no one can plan that, right? But this is a planned gathering of people for one purpose.
That's right.
So it's a lot more difficult for you to like just say, oh yeah, no, it's some random thing that just happened. It's not true. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the last CosMas that we had.
What year
after
was
that,
this? I actually wanted to ask, what year was this?
2005.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So notably, there aren't actual like timestamps on these photos anymore. And so there is no date that I can actually cite at this point. And on top of that, what was it? Like, because the previous years were like, oh yeah, hey, there were obviously like, this is CosMas 2003, this is CosMas 2004. The big question at the back of my head was like, oh, what was this? When was this?
I think because the photographer decided, or maybe discovered, that removing the timestamp would make her photos look better.
Yeah, my guess is also like, I think there's at some stage, a lot of like photo shops, like once again the photo processing shops, they started they started only putting the dates at the back of photos rather than the front.
That too, yes.
Yeah, so I think this was around that time as well.
Yeah, so we ended up finishing up CosMas. We basically stopped maintaining the forums, there were some members who decided they didn't want to deal with the fallout and left. That's fair. And yeah, so that was the end of CosMas. Was a good run, and yeah, I guess it did sort of help. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I hope that our experience creating CosMas did help other organizations, be aware that they too can hold events outside of CF, and it can work, depending on where they are and obviously the resources that they have. Yeah.
You can't see it, but I'm nodding. So the fact is, right, like I usually do this with a camera for good reason, because I realize I'm actually a very like gesturing person when I'm talking.
Yep.
And so without a camera, it's kind of weird. But at the same time, because there was a lot of things that was going on, I didn't want to put on a camera because I know there might be problems. I'm like, okay, I just want to make this as clean as possible, So yeah. So but anyway, but yeah. Speaking as a guy who was actually there during CosMas, like 2004, and I think I went to the mini one. I'm not 100% certain. I think I did. I'm not 100% certain. But like as a guy who was there at some level, and who was there, who was actively there for the sorry, I'm hearing voices, that's why I'm like weird. But yeah, so as a guy who was there during some parts of it, and the guy who was active during the forums back then, like for me it was always very interesting to see the discussions that was there in like the separate places, like CosMas versus Comic Fiesta back in the day, which were both equally forums that we were active in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, nowadays you just go to Reddit, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna start a subreddit or something like that. I know I have no idea how Reddit works, by the way. I've got to this age where I'm not doing forums anymore. It's just not me anymore.
I think most of us are in that sort of the group. Yeah,
but yeah, like back in the day, right? Like it was Comic Fiesta and CosMas, MCC, which they had their own forums. I think it's also worth noting back in the time when those forums were active as well, there were also other forums. Laureate forums, which is still running, is still a huge forum right now. Not as huge as it used to be, but it's still a pretty decent forum. And then there was also Pacomic. I have no idea what happened to Pacomic. I don't know whether they're still active. But yeah, there were, and I think there was also a Chinese one that I'm not as well in touch with, and I apologize 101% to all the Chinese comic artists like who are active there, because my failing, not yours. But yeah, but seeing how things went with CosMas, I think there was a lot of lessons that a lot of us were somewhat learning from in one way or the other.
Yeah, that's right.
It was always nice to have comparisons in that way, Yeah, but one thing that you brought up. Yeah, go ahead.
I think so, and then in the end, I think the general, or at least for me anyway, the consensus was, perhaps we should focus, or sort of focus our efforts on CF. Rather than create two separate entities that compete with each other. And basically, the resources that we have in Malaysia at the time were already so thin.
Right.
Like, why are we stretching it thinner still?
Right.
So, I think, well, I'm not sure about the other members, but me especially decided to join CF instead and help them out for the following years after.
Oh, okay. I will probably have to
but that's another story. Yeah.
Oh no, it's a relevant story because I never knew.
Yeah. So I decided to, I guess, bring my own experiences and my own, I guess, experiences, I guess, and try to help CF, with what they do, and see what I can help. Join the committee and that sort of stuff.
Wow. What year?
Yeah.
What years were you active?
I believe it already started in 2005. So there was some photos I was looking at where I was part of the promotional booth that CF had set up in other events.
Oh, really?
So like I believe it was Gumpak.
Oh, were you there?
Yeah, there's photo evidence of me being there. Ticket for sale, Comic Fiesta 2005.
Wow, really? Okay. I don't.
Yes.
I
So
don't
if you
think.
look at the photo, you look at the photo that I gave you that you've
Right.
used for my avatar.
Right. Right.
You see ticket for sale, and on the registration sheet, you can see on the table it's Comic Fiesta 2005.
Really? Oh shit.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, I didn't know. This is for anyone who's looking at it right now. I just brought it up, by the way. I didn't know. I saw the tickets for sale. I have no idea what it was for.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you can see it's Comic Fiesta 2005.
Oh, it's not visible at all. But yeah, it's just completely cropped
Okay,
out.
yeah. You have to trust us on that one.
But okay, but here's the funniest thing, right? That means my tenure completely, like your tenure and my tenure is just basically bookended. Like when mine ends, yours begin with CF. Almost,
Pretty
almost,
much. Yeah.
yeah. Because I was there for, I was there. I think actually no, I was there 2004, 2005 as well. I believe. Yeah, but I think at the time, like in my head, I wasn't as aware of everybody that was really really helping out and being around and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It was hard to tell anyway back then. Everyone, plain clothes could just be
Yeah,
a
I know.
visitor. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Okay, while we're on the Gumpat thing, right? I probably should, in all fairness, and because I think we've seen you in costume a little bit more. I want to show one more photo of you in costume, which I have no idea where is this from. Oh, apparently there's a date here, but so I'm just going to share this one more time. This one as well. This is you in 2005, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Good old Bleach Aizen cosplay when so this was Aizen, and obviously this has been so many years, so I don't think this is a spoiler for anyone. When Aizen revealed himself as the secret bad guy.
I have not watched Bleach, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so he appeared to be this good guy for most of the series, and in plot twist he was a bad guy. So when I was reading the manga in the IRC days.
Yep.
So that's where we got our manga, and the latest one revealed that he was a bad guy, and I thought, you know what? Nobody knows that he's a bad guy yet. I'm gonna cosplay him, go to this event, nobody will know who I am, and then they read the manga and like, oh no, it's him, he's the bad guy. And sure enough, everyone's like, oh my god, and people came out to me and like, oh, you're like the bad guy Aizen. Like, yes I am. How astute.
Okay. Now, as I said, like to be fair, you actually have a photo of me cosplaying as well, and there's a separate one. So I want to let's just put it out here as well.
Yeah.
I'm actually here. This is
there you go, and that's me. And that's me as well in the red.
Oh, that's you in the red?
Yep.
Holy shit! I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, that's me. As Dante from Devil May Cry 2.
Wow.
Yeah, and this was when I was helping out with Gumpa, I believe. So the organizer on the right, the female, I think she and I worked closely to assist with the cosplay event.
Right.
Because obviously Gumpa didn't know a thing about organizing a cosplay event competition, so they enlisted our help.
Yeah.
To do that, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so here's the thing that I feel like a lot of people might not have known this. So we were sharing stories. We were sharing stories back in early 2000s, and we mentioned earlier about just how scarce the scene was right back in the day. I think what's interesting is what a lot of people might not know is that both Comic Fiesta and CosMas back in the day were the guys who basically set up a lot of the initial sort of best practices, if not the rules and regulations for cosplay competitions. Like I think between like CosMas's own set of rules and regulations and CF's own initial set of rules and regulations, they eventually evolved into the most common set of rules and regulations for cosplay competitions within Malaysia. Because the fact is, right, a lot of events actually like just copied from Comic Fiesta after a while.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
I think there was an event where someone copy pasted our rules, even with the typos in it.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, those weren't accidental typos. They were intentional typos. I've shared this on my own Facebook before, and I'm actually stupidly proud of this, by the way, because I knew that some events were doing it, but I wanted to catch them in the act. So when I drafted the rules and regulations for CF's cosplay competitions at some time, right, and I want to emphasize, like, I refined from a predecessor's work, right. So when I was doing it, I very intentionally would sometimes use abbreviations for CF. Like, so I'll use CF sometimes in reference to Comic Fiesta. I will sometimes intentionally misspell CF. I'll sometimes add a space. Sometimes I'll remove a space here and there. So like, like it's not just CF itself that's spelled inconsistently. I also have like other things, like little traps along the way. It's just completely intentional, so that if anyone was to try and like Control F and try to replace everything, you have trouble.
That's right.
Yeah, and at the very least, what you end up doing is you'd at least end up having to basically replace, like you basically have to read line by line everything and type out at some level. So basically, I'm forcing you to do the bare minimum.
That's right. Yeah. Proofreading, but most people they don't do.
Yeah.
Then they just copy paste and that's it. Call it a day.
Yeah, and then we would be able to see it, and a lot of people still didn't care, but we at least have the moral satisfaction. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man. When was the last event, last CF that you helped out in?
Oh man, I don't remember. Possibly 2008, maybe 2007.
Wow.
Because that was when, because in 2005, I think, was when I moved over here to study. So obviously I didn't have much time to go back to help with the planning and stuff. Everything I could help out was via forums or
right.
IRC. So I couldn't be as involved with the event anymore. So after a couple of years, I decided to step down as well from my role in CF. Yeah.
2007 was the year in Times Square, was it?
Not completely sure. It's something I never really thought about, but all I remember was, yeah, because we were in, university overseas, and it's just
okay,
really difficult to coordinate, especially with the time difference as well. And people have meetings at, that's all. Let's meet at 9 p.m. Malaysia time. It's like 11 p.m. for us. Or if daylight savings is in effect, it would be 12 a.m. for us.
Right.
So that's just not feasible. Yeah.
Yeah. Which once again, I just want to emphasize, right now is really late for Atticus already. I'm really, really thankful for him joining me today for this.
Yes. That's so good.
I was saying earlier during the show, right? Like, there are a lot of times when a lot of people who I call in here, for the most part, I do know most of everyone's story to some level. At some level, like Wisnu, who was my Indonesian guest last week, is one of the few rare cases where I really very, very know very, very little about his past and stuff like that. But like today is one of those kind of cases where I thought I would have known more, but no, actually, like more than 50% of the story is just completely foreign to me. It's just completely new to me. It's just fascinating. Can I ask? Like, this is going to sound, this is a bit on the private side of things. So I'm going to type this on the side for you, and you let me know whether this is okay, all right? because I don't want I don't want to verbalize it and just to be shut down. I just dropped you a message on Discord specifically about this question. So you let me know whether it's okay or not, and if you say it's okay, then I'll verbalize it. If it's not, I'll just drop it completely because I am curious.
So I've met that particular person.
Are you
in
okay
the first
with
year
this conversation? Are you okay with this conversation?
Oh, I can answer the question, but I probably won't
okay.
go
You don't
too
want
much
to name
into
drop.
detail.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was just gonna say that I met this person on the first year that I moved overseas. To Melbourne, obviously.
So
Which was in 2005.
He was in Melbourne.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So yeah, because there was always this impression I had that like you met that you met through CF, because there was a lot of relationships that we've had between friends and all that I've always been very curious about how some of these relationships developed, and I always had this impression that like we got closer through the continued experience of organizing events and all these kind of things,
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, so there was a question I was very curious about, and by the way, just for anyone else who's listening, right? I did drop more like questions and clarifications with Atticus on Discord just now, but he's made it very clear that we're not going to be discussing them, so we're not going to drop and like elaborate on that further. I hope everyone understands, but basically that was at least where my headspace is at, and it's really like there was some level of curiosity in my head about how much of these relationships that we've developed through events that actually stay for as long as they do. Full disclosure, at least for me, my like some of my closest relationships are through my experiences with Comic Fiesta. A lot of my work relationships, a lot of my personal relationships are actually like seeded through my experience with Comic Fiesta.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm always very, very curious how some level of those geek experiences that we've had and we've decided to throw ourselves behind have sort of influenced us on a more extensively, and basically our personal timelines and stuff like that.
That's right.
Yep. So, yeah. Anyways, okay, so we're coming to the end of it. I do want to ask one last thing, I guess. So it's been a very, very long time, and interestingly, more or less, like practically 20. It's been 19 years plus. Oh, sorry, 18, 19 years, if not somewhat almost 20 years, right? Since the last CosMas. Is there anything you miss about it? Is there anything you feel like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to bring it back, that kind of thing?
Not really. I would say it was a good experience back then to organize the event, but I probably wouldn't bring it back. Seeing as it's really difficult to have a niche event in that sense where you're only focused on a specific aspect of the ACG community. And having CF as established as it is, and Amina, and Alpha, and all these other major events that happen, you kind of see an overarching similarity with all of them. And so to have an event where it's not inclusive of all the aspects of it would be something of a monumental task. And well, we had fun. We had fun back then. It was a good experience, but I wouldn't say I missed organizing it or would want to bring it back. Yeah. Being as old as we are now, we'd rather just sit on the sidelines, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it's good. No regrets, man, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
No, I mean, personally for me, I still think there's a lot to be done, a lot of things to be done right. But at least for me, I'm hoping these stories give people some context as to how things have evolved over our
Mm.
lifetimes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because hey, like I think it's worth noting that like the ACG culture is nowhere close to what Japan had, right? And
Nah. Yeah.
it's nowhere close, right? So,
No
but
way.
but it is a unique culture in its own way, and in many ways, like from this story, do you know? And this is I just want to bring this up real quick. Do you know that the
Mm.
event culture in Indonesia is
Mm-hmm.
is less than 15 years old?
Wow, still pretty young.
Yeah. This is a quick drop to my last. This is a quick pitch. Sorry. This is a quick like sales pitch, so to speak, like of name drop right from my previous session with Wisnu. So we were talking about events or large events,
Mm-hmm.
large ACG events, right, in Indonesia, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently Alpha ID, which was held in 2012, was the first one in Indonesia, at least to his awareness. If there were any, he's not aware of it, and anything close to that were just like small Japanese events. Like, sorry, no, not even Japanese events. They were like small college events where they had a corner that was like some people just opening like a experience zone for ACG related stuff, and sometimes
Yep.
not even
Yep.
that. It was just like Japanese related stuff, and it was like a corner of that was going to be ACG, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Indonesia, it's even a lot. It's half the age of what Malaysia
Yeah.
had, you know, that kind of thing.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So and now I mean, this is not a race about like who's ancient, right? But the fact is, I think it's important to recognize like the growth and how things have evolved, and to recognize like how things might go and how things might change as we go along.
Yeah.
One part we sort of touched on earlier, we never really get into, was about how people's reaction towards cosplay has sort of evolved over time. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
we saw pictures earlier about like how in CosMas 2003, yeah, 2003, like we had people with like odd reactions to things, or they're trying to ignore cosplayers, but nowadays that's not the case anymore, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and
It's a lot more exposed now.
yeah.
People are more aware of the culture itself.
Do you think that that's a good thing though? Like, just out of curiosity, do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing, or do you think like, yeah, no, it has pros and cons and it's more nuanced than it looks, kind of thing?
Uh, I think it's a good thing. I think everyone should be free to pursue their own hobbies without scrutiny, or unfair scrutiny rather.
Mm.
And be it dressing up or showing their true personality, within reason, of course.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like, as long as you don't
And
harm anybody, right?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good.
I for
You know,
one,
uh,
I for one salute every person who's ever willing to go into a con in a furry suit. Like, seriously, that does not look comfortable. Anyone who does it, you are celebrating in a way that is way 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 beyond my willingness to indulge.
yeah, nah,
I
they are
admire you.
those on another level. Yeah,
I admire
sometimes
you.
when they having a rest scene, they take the head off, and you just see them just drenched in sweat.
Yeah, no, no. I
Yeah,
applaud you. I applaud you. I would give you an aircon room to rest in if I could, but like, holy crap, like you guys, insane.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but yeah,
Mm.
cool. Anyway, Atticus, it's getting late for you. It's what was it, like 1:30 at your time right now?
It is, yes.
Holy crap! Thank you so much for your time. I really don't want to hold you longer than we should, and we've covered, I think, a lot of CosMas already. For anyone,
Hmm.
I usually would sometimes open up to questions, but I don't think I want to hold you for that right now. If anyone does have any questions or inquiries about like this story, or you feel like you want to add your own stories to it, um, do you know I'm going to private this video as I mentioned earlier, we're going to, and I'm going to re-upload this again as a separate video once I removed or if not blurred out the private information, because I know that there is sensitive information that went out. So the instant this thing ends, I'm going to I'm just going to VOD it on the spot. Sorry, I'm just going to private it on the spot. But look forward to the upload. I will also upload my last segment first before I upload this one. So there might be some delays because I'm also moving house. A lot of stuff happening over here. Yeah, but yeah, but so look forward to that. For now, I guess, Atticus, any last things you want to talk about before we go off?
No, nothing.
Cool.
Things all good.
All right, then I think we'll just leave it at that tonight. And thank you everyone for who have joined us. I hope this has been an interesting, journey back through the early days of cosplay conventions in Malaysia. I think, for what it's worth, CosMas will forever, well, as long as this video holds up, hold a very unique place in the history of Malaysia ACG culture, where it was and will forever be the first cosplay centric event in Malaysia. I think that's not going to be honor that's going to, you just can't take it away from them. And Atticus, to you and the rest of the team, Miss M, Mr. W, and everyone else who was not name dropped along the way, thank you guys very much for your contributions, man. You guys were pioneers in the day, and it must have been rough.
All good. You're welcome.
All right. Yep. So with that, thank you guys, everyone who's actually stuck around for the stream. I hope this has been fun for you guys. I hope to continue doing this. The next segment I'll be doing with a very, very, if you know him, he's gonna be a pretty big name. If you don't know him, well, time to get to know him. I'm actually doing my next segment with Nerve. And we'll be talking about KefKel specifically, not Comic Fiesta, but KefKel specifically. We'll be talking about how KefKel came about and what hopefully to look forward to. Because and this is not like this is going to be a huge promo, but the next segment, the date for the next segment will be 7th of June, and it will be the Friday night before KefKel. So we'll be doing that, and we'll be talking about KefKel, which will be the weekend itself. So if you're hanging out or you're setting up your booth and stuff, just tune in and listen to us while you set up your booth and things. All right. So till then, everyone, I hope to see you again soon during our next segment, and look forward to the re-upload in the coming weeks. Tatas for now. Good night. Bing bong.